Computer-generated chess problem 02402 by Chesthetica. White has a rook, a pair of bishops, knight and pawn against black's bishop and knight. So how should white proceed here? The bishop on g4 is in a position to be captured by the knight. So maybe bishop to e6, followed by king to b4, bishop to f6, trying to trap the king in, maybe knight to f3. The knight prevents the rook from pinning the bishop by guarding the h4 square. So rook to h3 perhaps. So now black is in a lot of trouble. Maybe black might try a delaying tactic with bishop to e5. So knight just captures the bishop, king to c5, rook captures knight, and mate will soon follow. But looking back at the original position here, is that the best move, bishop to e6? Let's take a look at the analysis. So as you can see, there are mates in 9, 10 and 12, but there's also a much simpler, less than half the number of moves, mate in 4, and it's simply bishop to e7, sacrificing the bishop on g4. So the threat here is actually bishop to d7 mate. So let's say black does something like bishop to g3, well then bishop to d7 mates. So it would make sense for white to capture this bishop. And what we have here is basically a clearance tactic, because the next move is rook to h1. Can you see what white is trying to do here? The black king is locked into the a file. So if knight to f2, rook to a1 mates. So black can only delay, maybe with bishop to d6 or bishop to e5. In either case, white has a defense. Knight captures the bishop, or in the case of bishop to d6, bishop captures bishop. And now rook to a1 cannot be prevented. So wherever the knight moves, rook to a1 mates. Now in the original position, it might be hard to see this tactic of locking the king into the a file with bishop to e7 and then forcing the knight off the h file, clearing it for the rook, because if the knight doesn't move and capture that bishop on g4, the bishop on g4 will mate on d7. So knight has to capture this. This gives way to the rook, and at this point there's nothing black can do, and rook to a1 cannot be prevented. I hope you enjoyed this one. I know I did.
Chesthetica's Book of Chess Constructs, Volumes 1 through 5. Available on Amazon.